Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ember podcast. Today's the first episode, and we're here with Makahl. Say hi.
Hello.
Orangteam,
Hello.
Sergio,
Hello, hello.
and of course, me, Jorick. Um, Today, we're gonna talk a bit about Irish history, I understood. So, I guess Orange Team
Hello,
just jump right into it. The Ember podcast. Today's the first
So
episode, and
I'm
we're
going to
here
talk about
with
today Northern
Makahl.
Irish history specifically, and to why really when Northern Ireland was in the news for Brexit, really, because that's probably the most attention Northern Ireland's ever gotten in about 20 years. So, what is your everyone here? What's your knowledge of Irish history?
I know that
Uh,
potatoes made a problem.
yeah, and I've got the bare basics because I've got some family over there, but nothing, no specifics.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like my knowledge is more than the average Dutch person. We generally don't really hear a lot about Northern Ireland. Wouldn't even be surprised if most
history,
people wouldn't know it exists.
or even Irish history in general.
Yeah, like the whole split. People are stupid nowadays. I don't know exactly how stupid though.
Oh,
Well, to be fair, that's more than I think anyone would outside of Ireland. So the reason why Northern Ireland is mainly uh the main discussion is going to be starting from night. I'm going to be going through a history of Northern Ireland, and hopefully it won't be a lecture, but more of a discussion.
Hmm.
Uh,
Mhm.
but the where it all starts is back in 1606 or 09, and I won't be staying in the past. So the Protestant Reformation happened, and that Henry VIII wanted to have a made divorce as he wants, so he made the Church of England, and then he wanted all the United Kingdom to be Protestant, and he then wanted to make Ireland Protestant, and Ireland wasn't Protestant, and it was very Catholic. So what happened was a series of plantations happened across Ireland. I can't remember how many, but I think it was about a few. But there was one main one, and that was the Ulster plantation. And what the plantations were is where they would settle English. It was actually, I think it was actually Scottish Presbyterians who they settled in Northern Ireland, and
I
it was
heard
mostly
something about that.
it was mostly in the northeast. I think is where they predominantly were. Um, but across the entire country, the plantations didn't catch on, and they were mostly still Catholic. But they caught on in Northern Ireland, and they caught on so well that actually drew out the uh, the nobles, the Irish nobles, out there, because there was a bit of a rebellion that happened, and they lost, and then left, and then they went off into Europe seeking help. They didn't get it, and they then went to Rome and died. Very sad. Um, so that happened. So let me look at my notes. So, and on top of that, what happened was that you had something to call the penal laws, and the penal laws are basically just discrimination against Catholics. Catholics can't Catholics can't work. Catholics can't have their own houses. Catholics can't do this. Catholics can't do that. Can't do that. Those were eventually repealed, I think, mostly in the mid 1800s, I think, or the late 1700s. And then you have Cromwell, who he did things. Um,
Yeah, I
he
mean,
did lots of
I don't even know a lot about Cromwell. Lord Protector, right?
ugh, dictator, more like. What one of the
Yeah.
big did was that he forced a lot of Irish people into the western side of it to essentially starve them out, and that's actually kind of why the western side of Ireland is mostly has the highest
I love
concentration
that.
to speak Irish. Sorry, you were saying? Makahl? Oh.
Yeah, the guild act.
Yeah. And that happens. And then eventually that accumulated. Oh, and then the French Revolution happened. And that inspired a revolution in 1991 by Wolftown. It was basically an independence movement. It didn't go anywhere. And it actually caused the dissolution of the local government in Ireland in 1801. It's where the whole of Ireland was to be run from London, which meant Ireland had no local autonomy. And this started the movement called the Home Rule movement, where basically just getting local autonomy back in Dublin. And
Get the Anglos off the island.
mhm,
It was,
it,
they
it was a lot
basically
more,
said they basically said no taxation without representation.
sort of, but it wasn't even independence. They just wanted local autonomy, you know. The thing is, there was a lot of pushback from the Protestant communities because one of the slogans they said it was "Home Rule, Rome Rule," where they're saying that the Catholic Church is going to be running Ireland. We're not Catholics. This is bad. Which, to be fair, if
Sure,
you
yeah. Like, especially back in the days, the Pope had a lot of influence.
well, like they kind of predicted what Ireland would look like when they got their independence because it was sort of run by the Catholic Church. But I get into when Northern Ireland becomes its own state into what they did with their fate. So the Home Rule movement happened, and then it didn't happen because World War One happened. You catch me? So that was all put on hold. It was about to be voted on, and it was about to be enacted. And if this bill was enacted, we probably. But it didn't happen in 1914. And then in 1916, you had the Easter Rising in Dublin, and this sparked the drive for independence because back then people were only looking for home rule, like something in Scotland or Wales, but now people wanted independence from the UK.
I mean, yeah, even the US started out as well. Well, probably some who wanted independence. I think maybe that's the same, but on average, it was we just want to control our own shit, to control our own destiny.
Mm-hmm. Uh, and that rising failed, but it did set the track for independence. And in 1918, an election was held, and what it basically showed was that the majority of the country wanted independence because they voted for a party called Sinn Féin, and Sinn Féin were an Irish nationalist party. Um, then in 1919, you had the War of Independence, which went from 1919 to 1922, I believe, which was the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, who were fighting against British army who was stationed in Ireland. Basically, a lot of people died. Big mess. A lot of civilians died actually, and a lot of massacres.
As happens often in
What
those
one
situations.
time, actually, one time there was an ambush against against a British convoy, and then in retaliation, the British burned down Cork City, and they said that the Irish did it to themselves, like they just accidentally lit their own city on fire. I'm not joking.
See, that's the usual tactic against guerrilla warfare. Like
Mhm.
guerrillas cannot be defeated on the field because you cannot find them. So what you do is that you delegitimate their fight. You make the people that would normally give them refuge and give them help. You would go to them and say, "Hey, this is what happens when the guerrilla still works in the field. We're going to kill children and women and burn down your houses. If they stop, then we stop. So if you join the guerrilla, you are encouraging us to continue doing this." So the guerrilla in theory stops. Or you can also give them more motivation to continue doing what they're doing.
Mm.
It's a bit dangerous.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like reminds me of Vietnam, actually, because then the Americans burned down villages, and that just gave the Viet Cong more troops. So that happened, and then if a peace treaty was signed, called the Anglo-Irish Treaty, and this treaty basically said that Ireland will be a dominion under the UK, under the Irish Free State, but it won't be the full island. It will be 26 of the 32 counties, and the 6 counties remaining will be part of the UK under its own government, because I think it's just the majority. Like is I can't remember what the number is, but it's mostly people in that section are Protestant of following, and then the other percent is Catholic. The thing is that no, I'm going to. So there's 2 Irelands now in 1922, and now we're going to focus on Northern Ireland. So what formed was the Stormont government, and under James Craig or Clarkin, can't remember his name. But this government was formed. The thing is, even though at the time of Home Rule they were saying Home Rule, Rome Rule, you end up getting with the first Prime Minister saying that Northern Ireland is a Protestant parliament for a Protestant people.
Mm-hmm.
Thing is, not everyone in Northern Ireland were Protestant.
Yeah, of course not.
So
I mean,
this kind of
did you see like any exodus from like mass amounts of people moving when the 2 Ireland split, or
they're not from Northern Ireland, but from the Republic, because
a lot of Protestants coming over there?
a lot of Protestants in the Republic leaving to other parts of the UK, because like even the Republic tried to accommodate for this, which is they changed the voting system from a first past the post to proportional representation, where your vote is carried on, to accommodate for the Anglican population. Things that the Anglican population just diminished over the years, not really for persecution reasons. I think it was really just everyone leaving, really. But you didn't see it in Northern Ireland because of how much the population was. And the thing is with like discrimination, people when people when brute force is coming at them, people tend not to, flinch and move, tend to bear the brunt and, be hard against it. So what you saw in Northern Ireland was uh, discrimination, basically, where even though it wasn't really illegal, it wasn't legal to be Catholic, and there weren't really laws around against being Catholic. There was like a sentiment that you shouldn't be, because the Stormont Parliament was mostly Protestant representation. There was vigorous gerrymandering going on in Northern Ireland. There was accommodation for housing. Protestants were favoured over non-Protestants. And just shit like that was happening, really.
Yeah, personally, I'm really not a fan of the like local representation on the national level idea.
Mm.
I think it just, yeah, gerrymandering is like one of the obvious consequences of that almost.
On the other hand, it's a very good tool to avoid regions being ignored for their lack of population, or for whatever reason. Just imagine that the most egregious example would be the US. Imagine if you do away with regional representation in the US, California and New York would be able to dictate what the country does, and people in Kansas would be pretty much upset because there are far less Kansas people than
Well, yeah,
New York.
the U.S. is a federation of quite different states, but when I mean, like Northern Ireland and Ireland, or like United Ireland, isn't that big of a country.
No, it's like 6 million people in total. We count Republic and Northern Ireland.
I don't think like you'll the differences are big enough to warrant such a solution.
Mm.
Yeah, but decentralization, when done well, is usually a good idea. When done well, that comes from a Spaniard who knows perfectly what the problem is with when.
Well, for example, here we have our like local municipality elections, we have province elections, and we have national elections, and those three are different. Like,
Mm.
don't really see the reason why having a local candidate in national parliament. The questions are often quite well. The national parliament should deal with national issues and not with regional issues. Those should be left up to the other ones as much as possible. And yeah,
Also, there was very much clear cases of discrimination when it came to the job market. Like if you put down, if you have your CV and Irish name, you're not getting the job. Simple as. And even in the police force as well, same as they didn't hire, Catholic nationals, which you can probably see where that went, where Protestants probably got off more than Catholics did, and Catholics were predominantly still discriminated against in the police force, which is like, don't mess with the police force for fuck's sake. They should have known that. Like, but the thing is, like, I don't. This is my opinion. I don't think the UK, the London, really cared about Northern Ireland. They didn't pay attention. Like this was all happening, going on. While London, like, well, I don't think London cared because when you look through Northern Irish history, they kind of were all on their own dealing with the situation. Which and
sure.
like Sergio, you're saying like um the national level should come in and get involved, right?
It's my thing with decentralization and centralization is that in theory I think that the lower that governments are, the better. They are easier to be kept accountable, they are more close to the problems. But on the other hand, I'm sure you all know what Spain has been going through thanks to decentralization. For example, the schools were handed over to the Catalan regional government, and now you've got a bunch of brainwashed shitheads going around Barcelona burning it down.
Mm.
So
The thing is,
I don't know.
Maybe we'll
like,
get into that another time.
yeah,
I agree.
that'd be interesting to talk about actually. The thing is that like, do any of you know when gay marriage was legal in the UK? It was like recently, I
Oh,
think.
I wouldn't really know.
I think it was in like the 2010s. But gay marriage only got legal last week in Northern
Yeah,
Ireland.
I heard. It's
So that just
great
shows that
news.
like, yeah, great news. But like that just shows that not a lot of pressure being put on Northern Ireland, to change. Abortion isn't even legal in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, but I
You
mean, compared to like other countries, Ireland is quite religious still, right?
know,
Like
that is
here,
my
50%, or in Netherlands, it's like 50% more than is like a religious.
I just looked at the stats. I think it's about 10% is a-religious, and then the rest is
Yeah,
some form of Catholic and Protestant. Yeah, but
it's
that is for reasons I'm going to get into now. So
It's interesting though how the stuff the rest of Europe did during the 17th century, like having a lot of these political differences based off of religion, 80 years war, 30 years war, etc.
mhm,
It happened in Ireland just now, last week,
mm,
metaphorically speaking.
yeah, I
It's
think
interesting
it's
that.
because like well, like the 30 Years' War was the war between the Protestant League and Catholic League, right?
Sorry, say again?
That was the war between Protestants and Catholics, right? In
Yeah,
Europe.
that's a 30 years war. The 80 years war was sort of related to the other one. Happened at the same time. It was the Dutch trying to get independence from the Spanish for religious reasons, among
Well, I
others.
don't think the main reason was religious, but it was certainly a part of it.
Well, the main reason that Belgium didn't declare independence was for religion, wasn't it?
Yeah.
True.
But like I feel like it was kind of bound to happen anyway. Because
Oh,
you
yes.
actually didn't see any because like then again, Catholics and Protestants in Ireland didn't mingle. Again, so they just didn't interact with each other. But when you put them in a box essentially for Northern Ireland, things were bound to get messy. And then again, the UK should have known this. They really should have. They should have forced, representation in the UK, in Northern Ireland. Like, because like it's not Northern Ireland isn't like 90% Protestant and 10%. It's 60-40 for
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
that's a bit surprising.
yeah. Like when they drew up the borders for what is going to be Northern Ireland and the Republic, there were 4 counties that were for sure Protestant and two that were 50-50, but they gave those to Northern Ireland. So
I think that there might be a bias there
there was
towards whoever it is drawing the line.
Well, Northern Ireland is already tiny, right? So,
yeah, 6 days, yeah. So all this discrimination basically accumulated into the civil rights movement. So there was a big movement in the 60s to basically just like stop this. This isn't fair, and to get civil rights for Catholics. And which was fine. It was mostly peaceful, I believe, up until I would say there are other moments in history around this time that some people say is the start of the Troubles. I'd say I think it's 1968 or 9 at the Battle of Bogside. And what the Battle of Bogside was there was a Protestant parade going past a Catholic neighborhood, and basically the Catholics didn't like this. Exactly happened. Well, basically just turned into hello. Oh,
yeah, yeah, we can hear you.
thing went down.
Yeah, go on.
Uh, it basically just turned into a full scale riot, basically. And you can see video of this where people were just, carrying bodies across the town, blood everywhere. It was a mess. Essentially the army had to get called in. The RUC, it was called, the Royal Unionist Constabulary, to basically just calm this down. And this kind of set the precedent for the next 30 years, was it? Yeah,
Sure.
20 years. So you end up getting 2 factions culminating: the uh, Irish Republican Army and the Unionist Volunteer Force. Irish Republican Army, Irish Catholics, UVF Protestants, and they basically UVF would attack Catholic civilians or would attack Protestant civilians and the British Army as well. They would do ambushes across the street, shooting RPGs at trucks and stuff, car bombings, fire bombings, and the like, and that happened over up until 1991, I believe. So I think there was surprisingly my history about this part, because when we're talking about history, it kind of just skips up until the peace conference. So basically, just this shit show happens, and shit show gets into a bigger shit show, and basically everyone just goes, "Okay, this needs to stop. Seriously." It's gone on for about 30 years. It was actually kind of inherited, but generationally. Because what would usually happen at a local level would be that, like, so your dad would be shot by like a Protestant, right?
Yeah, sure. And then you want to retaliate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the guy you kill, his son, he had a son, and just be inherited down the line. So this was eventually stopped when an armistice was called between the IRA and the UVF to lay down the weapons.
Yeah, just to like for me it's really strange because it's like 10 years before I was born, and to think that like a place so close by was basically a war zone.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it's one, yeah, like 30 years ago right now, but that's not that long.
It is still Europe.
And it's like Western Europe. It's
Well, come on, that's what Europe does. It gets into wars and then out of them and then into them again. We haven't had that war in mainland Europe apart from the Balkans, which, come on, they are the Balkans, in quite a long while, but it's still Eastern Europe. What do you expect from it? I mean, Western Europe. What do you expect?
It kind of reminds me of, I remember someone was saying when they went to Bosnia and went to a village, and one of the villagers said, just pointed up to the hill to like another village. It's like, oh yeah, like 10, 20 years ago, those guys used to shoot rockets at us, but now we're friends. So it's like, it's like, it's
From
interesting how
what
like
I have,
history changed. Yeah.
from what I have seen, they have actually done a quite a beautiful reconciliation in that region. I myself once lived under the same roof with a Bosnian and a Serb, and it was quite smooth,
Mm.
which is good. Because, come on. I don't know from their point of view, but from my point of view as a foreigner, they are so similar. Same as with the Irish. Come on, who cares if you're Protestant or Catholic? Come on, it's
Literally.
you
well,
speak the same language, you have the same accent, and those religions aren't as different anyway. Okay, you like the Pope.
I mean
The
here
Pope.
it used to be pretty pillarized, like Catholics, Protestants, like
Yeah.
socialists, basically.
Hmm.
Like two other ones, right, Makahl?
Yeah, it's the Catholics, Protestants. I want to say the socialists.
Yeah, basically the labor people.
Yeah, the people who would vote. Those were the three big ones. I'm sure there was a fourth one, but I can't remember.
Mm.
I'll give me a second.
Like people even in one country
Yeah,
want to
the
split up
liberals.
in liberals, of course.
Yeah.
But back when they were maybe a bit more actually liberal.
No, these are the actual. Yeah, okay. Like I wanted to say, these are the actual liberals, but then I see that their political party was the VVD. So
Yeah.
No idea which one that is.
it's
Like liberal here basically means neoliberal market, but not really. Especially nowadays, politics here is getting weird, man.
Mm.
Do you mean those liberals that are very liberal until it comes to giving people
Free
liberty?
stuff, yeah, restricting rights.
Ah, yes.
Those
Yeah,
kinds
Liberal.
of liberals.
they're basic. We call them liberals, but they're basically neocons with a little
Yeah.
bit less religion.
How did we get to a situation in which a word based on the word liberty used with people who don't like how did we get here?
That's easy. It's because they think, oh, nobody could disagree with more liberty, even though we do. But it sounds good, so it makes people trust us.
Well,
Perhaps
yeah.
that makes sense.
Like also, I think part of it is that people don't realize that like rights come with responsibilities. Especially here in the
Ooh.
Netherlands, like
You said the R word.
responsibility or right.
Evil. You said the R word. Come on. How dare you? Didn't you know that is forbidden in the West?
Hmm.
It makes people think that they have to get jobs and not have the state to do things
Yeah.
for them.
I was gonna say something, but now I totally forgot. So thanks, Sergio. Good job.
No problem, man. My pleasure.
So the armistice was called, but the thing is that almost immediately afterwards there was an attack by one of the sides, I can't remember which one. But the armistice was broken. They didn't retaliate, which is very telling. I see. I feel like because it kind of just shows that they kind of wanted peace. You know, like they also weren't really squeezed into making an armistice. Kind of just asked, please stop this, sign an armistice, and they kept the promise. You know, there wasn't an outbreak when the armistice was called, and eventually the peace process went forward. And the America got involved. Actually, Bill Clinton, he got involved in that.
Yeah.
Don't know why. Yeah. Wasn't the Balkan War at around the same time as this in 1991,
I think
98?
so.
Yeah, the dissolution of Yugoslavia was as well at the
Yeah,
beginning of the 90s.
That's a sore point to the Dutch. So yes, that happened around that time.
Hmm.
You know, it's the general time of communism going to where it should never have gone out of hell.
Hmm. So the peace process accumulated in a number of things. Well, the main one was the IRA and UVF will surrender their guns. Now I say surrender with apostrophes because yes, they gave up the guns, but they also buried them in the middle of fields and forests just in case. And like if you go even the Republic, if like there will be places in the countryside where it's like, oh yeah, in the field there's guns in the field. Yeah. Like what? What? Exactly. It's like it's ridiculous.
Just
So they
caches of guns everywhere.
yeah, and that's actually caused problems where that's actually kind of where guns are illegal in the Republic. I don't know what the laws are in Northern Ireland, but I think they're somewhat the same. But there's still gun crime in Ireland. And some people attributed that where people found stashes of in the mountains.
Supposedly the guns still work, even though they've been buried for about a decade.
Well, you put them in a bag and you just bury it. So
Yeah, I mean, as long as you like no
so that was
oxygen
one.
gets there.
That was a promise. The second thing was to either side will be released.
I think
Now
you
the
broke
thing is
up
that
there.
these people have been found guilty of doing quite horrendous things.
You're breaking up like a bit.
Yeah,
A small bit.
Yeah. What was the last thing you heard?
someone would be set free, but they had done fucked up things.
Yeah. So yeah, found guilty of doing horrendous things. I think this was a condition for the peace process. You know, I remember my dad telling me, he's like, this guy, he killed 2 guys and he was left set free for the peace because of the Good Friday Agreement. Yeah, that's what it's called. I should have named the thing earlier on. But like, that made me think that like peace was given for Northern Ireland, but bad people had to be set free. You know,
At a high cost.
it's a very high cost, but you know, I think Jordan Pearson says it well, that, or I think someone else says it well, that no, like reaching a consensus where both people feel like they lost, essentially.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
They're the 2 things. They're the 2 of the 3 things I can think of. But the big one was the remaking of the Northern Irish government. So Stormont was dissolved, and a new system was put in place called the National Assembly, I believe it's called, and that is based off of cooperation, where you would have a first minister and a deputy first minister, and one of them has to be from a Irish Nationalist Party, and one of them has to be from a Protestant Union Party.
Yeah,
And
I heard about something like that.
mhm. So basically, just saying that no one group would have power over the other, essentially, and they both have to work together. Also, they changed the voting system where uh, it's a very unique system. It's not proportional representation. It's something different where there's like a word equation that goes into it, where
Yeah,
you end up
you
with.
can vote like your favorite and then your next one and the next one, right?
Well, but that's proportional representation. But the thing they have in place is works in a way where even though there's a 60-40% difference, it works out where it's basically just 50-50 in the parliament, I think.
Okay,
It
that's
works.
interesting.
I think that's how it works, but my politics teacher didn't really go into it. He just mentioned it. I was like, what? That's interesting. What?
Yeah,
So that works. Now,
sounds a bit liberal in my opinion, like rigging the vote for
I'm
certain
probably
groups.
no, I'm not. I'm probably not telling it as it is, but from what I understand, it kind of works like that. So after that, there were no more bombings. It kind of worked. The thing is that there's still societal pressure tensions, because every year you would get these marches called the Orange Order marches. The Orange Order are basically just a group that venerate Protestant culture, and the reason why they call it Orange Order is because of William of Orange.
Yeah, I already know a bit about this. Couldn't wait.
Yeah, so they venerate him, which is where they wear like an orange ribbon around their chest, and they go around banging the drums, basically saying, "Hey, Protestantism, cool." And then again, Ireland has Paddy's Day, so the thing is that they have paths that they go through every year, and they're all the same. Thing is, these paths, these routes, they go through Catholic areas, and when they go through Catholic areas, shit hits the fan. People start throwing stones, stuff at the marchers. Police had to get in with armored trucks and water cannons just to calm everyone down. So they're
That's
marching.
shitty.
I know, yeah.
Like
And even
leave protesters alone if they're not doing any harm.
well, they're not protesters. They're just
Well, sort of.
they're well, yeah,
They're
uh,
there to promote.
Demonstrators, let's say.
Yeah. Well, basically, yeah, they're there to promote a certain topic.
I actually don't know if Paddy's Day is done in Northern Ireland, and if it's treated with the same thing. Also in Belfast, the capital city of Northern Ireland, in the city centre, politics is illegal. Essentially, you
Seriously?
can't. Yeah, like any flag. Over a number of times in a certain part of the year, you can't pick it. No, you can't. What's the term? You can't advocate
Okay.
in the city centre. You can't
Like
have marches in the city centre. I don't think you can even discuss politics in the city centre.
the whole city center. Like here, it's like you can demonstrate in parliament and you can demonstrate like on the grounds of. For the rest, it's
Hmm.
fine.
That is quite liberal. Shut
It's
up, you're in the
Yeah.
city center.
well,
Oh,
it's just
fuck.
any political discussion at all.
That's
It
not good.
yeah.
That sounds very sus.
Yeah, it is. I remember walking through it. No flags, no nothing. It was very grey. Actually, walking through the old town hall
Not even
with my dad. I was
local
like,
flags.
looking around. It's like real grey. It's like, you notice there's no flags as well. Just flag poles with no flags.
What?
Dude, that's sad.
At least get those flagpoles down.
Use them to hang your curtains or something.
So that was Northern Ireland from then up until Brexit. And oh boy, did Brexit open up all wounds.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the UK was only in Ireland with no borders, it would probably run a lot smoother than it has. Because also with the border for Northern Ireland, it's not an enforceable border because this border goes through homes and goes through fields. And the UK sent about 20,000 US soldiers and they couldn't keep the IRA out. That just shows how unmanageable this border is. Now, you could say, just redraw it. They tried to in the 1990s, 1920s. No one liked the way they drew the border. It caused a whole fiasco. So,
I mean,
drawing
you're
is not
always
an
gonna
option.
have problems like if you redraw a border.
But
Like
yeah,
drawing a border, the people on one and the other side are probably gonna be pretty angry.
Yeah, border disputes are. There is always history.
and also in the Good Friday Agreement, there's a tone with it where basically saying that the Irish people who define themselves as Irish, and I also forgot to mention, there's a statement in it where anyone in Northern Ireland can be Irish, British, or both, and they can define that under the Good Friday Agreement. Now, when it comes to the UK leaving, what happens when someone defines themselves as Irish or both in Northern Ireland, but they're not in the EU? So do they get the EU rights? It causes this
Sure.
mess.
Yeah.
Dang it, the Good Friday Agreement is great, but when it comes to Brexit, also it's being attributed that if Ireland and the UK weren't in the EU, because the EU actually did have some impact on it, you know.
Yeah, well, I've read a bit about the whole topic, and well, Ireland and the UK could probably make a deal if it wasn't for the EU being there wanting to protect the internal market.
But then again, like that would just undermine the EU, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because the EU is there, because there's already well the free movement of people has nothing to do with with the EU free movement, the Schengen area. It already was in place.
Mm-hmm. Almost do them. And also there's a tone where the Irish people won't be because one of the things that was felt with the Irish Catholics in Northern Ireland was that they felt like they were stranded. You know, they were under
Yeah.
a government that wasn't represented them and was oppressing them, and the Republic is just in arm's reach, and they're just going, get to and they're left alone because the Republic didn't really did it get involved? Not before the Good Friday Agreement because it couldn't really do anything about it. It did put pressure on us, saying this is horrendous what you're doing, but no action was given until the peace talks. So there was this tone in it where basically saying no Irish person, unionist or loyalist, will feel that again. But Brexit jeopardized this, because if Northern Ireland's leaving as well, I think I'm repeating myself. They do feel stranded again. So I don't think this has been brought up because have they come up with a deal for Northern Ireland? For Brexit.
I mean, I think
Kind of. It's not a good one. They are going to set up
Yeah.
a border in the Irish Sea.
I've heard
Like,
about
that
that. Yeah.
that was like
within
under the
UK.
current Boris plan, right? Under the Theresa May do part 2.
And let's be honest, it is not a good one. Countries
yeah.
should never
Like-
have borders within themselves.
But personally, I would like to see an end to the EU too, but for an example, which I think is kind of similar, I think we already had free movement of people between the Benelux, right, before the EU.
Yes, that existed.
Yeah, and well, if we would leave and Belgium wouldn't leave, we have a good examples like the town of Baarle. You have 2 towns, Baarle Hertog and Baarle Nassau, and they're basically enclaves within enclaves within enclaves. It's because of hundreds of years of border not dispute, but swapping land between dukes and things like that. You've ended up with a situation where single houses are in Belgium, while the rest of the street is in the Netherlands. And how would you do that if we would leave the EU, but Belgium wouldn't come with us?
Yeah.
Have you considered that all of these weird things and all of these problems would be much simpler if we didn't have the problem with which government rules over what part, which where the border is? If the European Union wouldn't have so many fucking regulations that it is impossible for the borders to not to not be closed and full of checks and inspectors or whatever. If that were the case, we wouldn't have the problem with the Irish border at all. If the EU, no problem, just leave. We are not going to set up a hard border because we don't need it. You can let any products come in. You can let any products come out. We are only going to check who it is that is going in. Do you have a passport? Yes, sir. Okay, let's go. Come in. I think that the most liberal solution to this would be, okay, do we have a problem with this? Why do we have this problem? Too many regulations. Okay, let's remove regulations. No more problem. No more fears of renewed terrorism.
Well, yeah, I think the problem is that the EU is so big, it needs to make so many concessions to be able to keep it together that it just screws everything up.
Yes.
Not just that, it's also that the European Union has a lot of stupid rules and they're also very protectionistic.
Yeah,
So
sure.
something like that.
I don't necessarily disagree with protectionism to a certain extent. Like I think
No, but true. Like I'm not a big fan, but
the
okay,
EU
I can
overdoes it.
accept it. Well, a bit, I think, but that's not the issue. The issue is that because it is protectionistic, it can't allow
Goods to go over the
the
border
open, yeah,
unchecked.
it can't allow the open access because it'll it'll make it impossible for them to be as protectionistic as they are. Thing is, the EU was always set up to be a protectionistic entity.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
No, really, it's the French wanted to protect their farmers. Um, that's one I know at least.
The only ones who didn't get protected were the British farmers. I mean the British fishermen who suddenly saw
Yeah,
us showing up in their coasts.
yeah,
That's not
that's
really
no, it's. I think yes, Minister put this best.
Yeah, I know. I've seen that clip.
See a clip?
Yeah,
Like the French wanted to screw over the Germans wanted to screw over the French.
yeah.
who doesn't want to screw over the French.
French.
You sure
Really?
about that?
The French workers want to screw over the French leadership, and the French leadership want to screw over the French workers.
Well, leadership always wants to screw up each other as well within
True.
Well,
the
there are so
the
many
leadership.
like different perspectives, different like goals of the project that nobody is able to achieve the goals. And like
Pretty
what you hear a lot nowadays is like European values, and
There
I'll
are
be
no
honest,
European
I
Identity.
values.
like the idea of European values itself is, or you would have to take like something so broad that it can basically be applied to any Western person. There's no like European in there, or it's
Yeah, like I don't want Karl Marx involved in my European values, like which they would involve.
well
Yeah.
again, like I know I've been talking a bit about the Netherlands, and I think that it's interesting to see the difference between the two. But we used to be like progressive in a good way. I think like a lot of advancements in like human rights, things like being the first country to legalize gay marriage, like our het gedoogbeleid, the like toleration policy with weed, although yeah, that like currently it's really outdated, and we kind of lost that since we joined the EU, I think.
Mm.
It is definitely an effort to remove the cultural peculiarities of each of the European countries.
Yeah, and well, I've been to like a few countries now in the EU since joining the LIA. Like I've been to England, and I've been to Belgium a few times, and like even between the Netherlands and Belgium, which everyone says are like very similar, they're still
There are
pretty far
differences.
apart. Like I was actually really shocked about how far apart we actually are. Like same with England. Like I felt, and yeah, this is like feelings, but I felt not really watched or something, but mm, don't know how to exactly put it. Like there are massive differences between cultures, between the way people operate on like a person-to-person basis, or on a like what people share with them to the public, and just like making up a flag, like stealing a classical song for your anthem and declaring a day doesn't create a culture.
Mhm.
Agreed. The thing is that the Europeans keep saying, "Oh, I love Europe. Europe is the best thing, isn't it?" Well, they are against what makes Europe Europe. Europe
Yeah,
by itself is just a geographical entity. It is a geographical entity that exists, made up
you can
by
roughly
atoms.
point at. Not
I
even
mean,
exactly.
yeah, you can't even say where the borders are, but it's just geography. It's earth and soil on the ground. The thing is that on top of that earth, there are countries that exist, and none of those countries are different.
Nations,
They, yeah, nations. They are different between themselves, and that's the fun part. That's the good part of these places.
Yeah,
They're different, and they have their own identities and their own peculiarities.
and because of the differences, like that, we've been able, like the main reason for like the, I don't know exactly if this is true, but I've heard at least that the main reason for why the West is technologically a lot further is because, like, compared to, by for example, China, there are a lot of different states with a lot of different ways of doing stuff, which always results in, well, almost always assures in the person who does things the best getting the most opportunity to do things the best. Well, if you look at China, for example, it's been, well, unified and de-unified, but it's like a really large landmass with which is very easy to control. And because of that, you don't see as much technological advancements and, well, cultural advancements too, and things like that.
No,
Europe is kind of ancient Greece, but larger. You know that ancient Greece, by its characteristics, especially separate from how, for example, the Middle East was, it meant that city-states had to compete with each other, often in art and in philosophy and in mathematics, that sort of thing.
I like the analogy.
Just
Don't think
if
it's
ancient
perfect.
Greece was the size it was, because that's how people would be able to communicate and maintain a common culture back then, when communication was done on horseback. Now that communication is done on a more mass scale, distances are smaller, common things can be maintained far closer, but still we have to compete against each other in our small states, and instead of creating huge civilizations in each state like you have in Asia, where no two countries share the same civilization, we share a civilization with different cultures, different way to interpret, and that drives competition, that drives progress through competition, and that is great.
There wasn't a lot of technological advancement done in the name of war. Because I remember with Galileo, like how he got his funding for his telescopes is that he sold his telescopes to the Venetian navy as a way of
Yes,
getting the upper hand on the Venetian enemies,
Sure.
which then funded his his research and such.
that is true. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
it's easier to justify whatever you're doing when it says, okay, if you fund my thing, you are probably not going to die at the hands of the enemy. It's a more direct way of proving the usefulness of whatever you are making, I think. People like to not die.
Mm, he
true.
basically means
most.
Most agreed.
No, what really happened, I think, by what I read about in China, is that technological advancement happened, and then because it wasn't beneficial to the empire or at least the emperor himself, the things got banned again,
Hmm.
and that's why it slowed down. And in Europe, that couldn't happen because if one country didn't like it and they banned it,
Another
then it
country
happened in
would.
another country. Yeah, and it's still true to this day that uh, competition breeds progress,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and in
In the single market, you lose a lot of that competition. Especially, like the competition becomes like really unfair because, well, take my like, for example, take a Dutch benefit like money that's like 800 euros a month. Go to Poland or Bulgaria or something like that, and you can live as a king there. Or the same currency, like bread here is a euro, there it's 50 cents. How are you gonna
compete.
yeah
Mm.
how do we in the Netherlands, like even as a like person, how do I uh like compete with someone who can live off half my salary by just working a few months here and then going back to whatever country they live to spend that money.
Yeah, I see. Anyway,
Yeah, we've been going for a while, so I'll any last points, and anyone?
just one more.
Mm.
Yeah, sure.
One more. So there's one thing that I just want to leave on that I'm never going to see, but in the Good Friday Agreement, there's a decision that can be made solely by Northern Ireland. So
I
only
think I
Northern
know
Ireland
where this is going.
can make this decision without the permission of London, and that is to call a referendum for Northern Ireland to be part of the Republic. And to be fair, I will say I am an Irish national. I do have a bias, but this whole
Oh,
situation
really?
could be dealt with very easily if you just let the people in Northern Ireland vote to
Yeah.
back to the Republic. The thing is that like back then that would have been a definite no. But considering that Northern Ireland almost unilaterally said we want to be in the EU, we like we be quite interested to see what that vote will come out as.
Yeah, they would really like to switch one master for another.
Oof.
Hmm.
Nah. The only good solution
Well,
is
it's
to
true.
abolish the Northern Irish state and turn it into the ANCAP paradise. I'm calling it. That's the best that you can possibly do. So what are we waiting for? I will move there. No taxes. Yes, please.
Yeah, but who's gonna build the
Fight for your
roads?
life, though.
Yeah, but who's gonna get me my neck nukes?
You make them yourselves. You lazy socialists. You want nukes? You make nukes.
And on that note, I think we're gonna wrap this one up. Thank you, Sergio, as always.
No problem.
Okay, so like this was the first episode. Probably not that interesting for everyone. I think there's still a lot of like changes we want to make, but yeah, like if you like stuff like this, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel to see the Ember podcast live. And we're probably gonna upload this on like a few different streaming platforms. We'll see what exactly. Probably is Spotify and whatever. So until next time, bye bye.
Cheerio.
See you, everyone.
Goodbye.